Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to everybody. For today's webinar, I think I don't have much time, so it's going to be a short webinar. However, during this webinar, we'll try to cover multi-time frame analysis, identifying fake CS-AK or validation of CS Arakuko. And after that, then we'll move on to entry method and how we are going to manage our margins in that sense. Okay, so in that case, is there any pairs that you guys want me to open or do the multi-time frame analysis for any pair? So we can take 2 pairs for today. So is there any suggestions from the crowd? Okay, I'm just waiting here. If you guys don't give me any pairs, then I'm just gonna go straight with GBP AUD. Right. Okay, so let me open another. Let's sort these things out so at least we know what we're doing. It doesn't jumble up with stuff. Okay. So hang on. Joe doesn't have any audio. I think I already sorted that out. So just double check on your settings, your audio settings. Make sure you identify your audio device. Okay. Okay. So let's start with multi-time frame analysis. So usually, before we even trade, we do need to make sure that we identified what particular trader we are. So hang on. So let me just reorganize the webinar in a sense so that it's much more of a flow. Okay, so we'll take this as number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Okay, so we do need to do something first. So obviously the first one is our planning. Okay. So let me just open an Excel spreadsheet. I think. Hang on. So I think I have a message here. Mr. Who's this one? Okay, Falik. Are you sure that you're getting Korean speaking, or can you understand? Can you hear my voice? Okay, so when it comes to planning, we do need to talk about some stuff first. Okay, that's really weird, Mr. Falik. Okay, so just let me know if you guys can see this. Okay, what's the other screen preview? They're having issues here. Show preview. Okay, can you guys see the Excel spreadsheet? So before we even do trading, we do need to make sure that we plan how are we going to trade. Okay, so there's a lot of things that you need to consider before you even do your trading. So what I will do today is obviously to just share um, the things that I've done before, that I used to do my planning as a trader, so that it's much more organized, and you can identify what are your goals in trading. Because if if you are trading right now and you don't even have any set of goals that you want to achieve, then you're really in a bad situation. You do need to make sure that you plan everything out. So at least you know what are the risks that you're going into, and you know what is your targets. Because if you don't have any targets, then it's going to be really hard for you to achieve anything. Okay? So usually I just make it to four simple steps, that the things that you need to prepare yourself before you even start trading. Okay, so obviously the first thing that you need to make sure that you have already identified what particular trader you are. Okay, so there are three types of trading. Obviously, that's scalping, which I always do. Okay, scalper, and then you have intraday, and you have swing. All right. So these are the three types of trading. So you need to make sure that you know what type of trader you are, because otherwise you are going to your trades are going to be shambles. It's not going to be organized, and you will be in a really bad shape that you don't know what you are trying to do. Okay, so if you're a scalper, then you should know what particular time frame that you should be looking at, because if you're on the wrong time frame, then you're going to be in a very wrong positions at the end of the day. So when it comes to scalping, this is the time frames that you should be looking at. So you should be looking at H1 M15 and M5. Okay, so for scalpers, I highly suggest that you take H4 as your compass in terms of setting up your trend. Okay, so you should be looking at setups at H1, M15, and M5. And if you are a scalper, then you should know that your target shouldn't be more than 20 pips. So if I'm scalping, I should just set my goals to achieving 10 to 20 pips. So that's much more achievable, because you know that M5 and M15, they are very active time frame. The price goes back to the same positions as before within the next few hours. So if you have already entered before, then you will find yourself on the same entry as you were before. Okay, so you have to make sure that you set where you cut loss, where you set your TP points. Okay, so if you're an intraday trader, then obviously you should be looking at H4, H1, and M15. Okay, and obviously if you're a swing trader, then you should be looking at monthly, weekly, and daily setups. Okay, so those are the time frames that you're looking at. So personally, if I'm an intraday trader, then I should be looking for 20 to 40 pips on a intraday trade. So if I'm going for a swing trade, then obviously you should be looking at 50 pips above. Okay, all right. So that should be your your aim for the day. So you do need to set your targets as well. So now you have identified what particular trader you are, then obviously now you should be able to set your targets. Okay, so if you know you are a scalper, then obviously you can set your goal should be set at 10 to 20 pips. And if you're doing intraday trade, then your target should be at 20 to 40 pips. And if you're on a swing trade, since obviously you should be looking at 50 to about 100 pips on this trade. Okay, so then once you have set your your targets, then you should be able to set your money management in that sense. So we'll talk about this money management later on. And finally, the most important thing is obviously your disciplines. Okay, so let's talk about I set up money management. Sorry, hang on, let me just get this back here. Oh, okay, hang on, let me just close this and get the new pair. Okay, all right. Are you guys clear with the type of trader and how many pips you're looking at? Is there any questions so far? Okay, so let me just reorganize this again. Sorry for that. Okay, so let's continue again. I think I accidentally pressed the recording button, so it started the recording again. So obviously now we have already identified what particular trader you are. So obviously if you're a scalper, you're going to be looking at setups at H1, and obviously you'll be aiming for 10 to 20 pips. Okay, for intraday trades, then you should be looking at setups at H4, H1, and M15, and your target should be at 20 to 40 pips. And obviously swing monthly, weekly, D1 setups for about 50 pips. So over here on the left, okay, I prepared a very simple what do you call this, a money management plan in order for you to grow your account. So basically what you need to do now is to set yourself a goal. Okay, set your targets. So my target in this sense that I would want to grow my $100 account to about 20% monthly target. So if I was to grow $100 over a period of 1 month for about 20%, so 20% of $100 is about $20. Okay, so obviously every month we have about 20 days worth of trading, excluding the weekends. So if you divide $20 over the period of 20 days, then it's much more achievable goal, since you just only have to achieve $1 a day. Okay, so if you put it this way, it's much more easier for you to achieve. So let's say, for example, that you start with $100, and obviously you create this spreadsheet using a broker and put a number of your account over there, and you have to make sure that you set what particular target you want to achieve, and obviously what particular trading style that you are going to use on this one. So if you want to grow $100, then we would set it to about 10 to 20 pips, because scalping should be about 10 to 20 pips. Okay, so money management wise, if your lot size is just 1 cent, okay, 1 cent on $100 account, then by right it should take about 1,000, nearly 1,000 pips for it for you to have a margin call. Okay, so that in a sense that you have already have a good margin management over there, because as long as I'm concerned, as long as you have about say 1,002 to 1,005 margin, that should be a very healthy margin management. Okay, so every day what you should do is you should be able to know how many pips you are going to achieve in one day. So let's just say, for example, that we started today with $100 and utilizing a lot size of 1 cent, and our daily target is 20 pips. So let's just say, just to make it much more easier in calculation, that 20 pips you earn about $2. Okay, so if you earn $2, $1 out of it will go to your capital, and the other dollar you should make what I call a bank account. Okay, so you should have a bank account, and the other should be a grow account. So obviously every day there should be $1 going into your bank account and also your grow account if you constantly earn about 20 pips a day. Okay, so that entails you that $1 you'll be able to put in your grow account, and the other dollar you will put in your withdrawal, which is your bank account. So ultimately, over the period of 20 days, if you constantly achieve just 20 pips, you should be able to grow your capital, your capital to about $120, and also having to be able to have a withdrawal of about $20 or more. Okay, so ultimately you're not actually growing your account 20%, but you're growing it about 50%. However, it is very important that you should set your daily goals, because according to this calculation over here, you know that you only need to achieve $1 a day to grow this account. Okay, so when you're doing this, then obviously your entry should be at M15 or H1. Let's just say, for example, that on a daily basis on week 4 I did an entry at M15. I sell AUD USD, and I earn about 20 pips. Okay, so let's just say that during the trade I earn about 19 pips, and I still have a deficit of 1 more pip just to get my daily target 20 pips. But fortunately I earn about 25 pips. So ultimately over here your withdrawal that goes into your bank account should be about $1.50. So in that should be your game plan every day. Okay, that should be what you should be doing right now. At the very beginning of the month, you should have a daily target, a monthly target, quarterly, year target, and obviously a year target. So if you set yourself some goals, if you set yourself some plans, then obviously you know where you are going. Otherwise, you don't have a sense of direction of what you are trying to achieve, and at the end of the day, you lose the money that you're trying to grow. Okay, so if you have proper planning, if you have a proper set of goals, then you are much more organized and much more keen to achieve those goals if you know which directions you're going. So over here, I also set on a weekly basis that all the trades that I did, let's just say, for example, I win 7 trades and I lost 2 trades, and you should have a rough idea of the ratio of your win and loss ratio. Because if your win and loss ratio is below 60%, then you should organize your trading plan and identifying a much more better setup for you to use, because you need consistency to be able to grow your account. So in BBMA, there's a lot of setups that you can use to do your entry. However, if I were you, I should be aiming to just find one particular setups that work for you. You don't have to go all the different types of re-entry. All You don't have to entry at extreme. You don't have to entry at MHB. Just choose one setup that works for you. Okay. So later on, I will show you guys those setups that you can use. Okay. So is everyone clear with the management wise? Okay, so we have already identified what particular trader you are. So for example, I choose to become a scalper, so I would be looking at H1, M15 and M5, and I would be aiming about 10 to 20 pips. And obviously, if you have $100 and with a lot size of 1 cent, that should have a big margin, and that should be a very healthy margin. Okay, and that already you should be able to sustain your account even if you are floating 100 or 200 pips. Okay, but that's not the case here. We want to make sure that when we do entry, our floating shouldn't be more than 30 pips. Okay, and finally, as I said, my teacher always told me that the 10%, okay, technique is 10%, and obviously discipline is 90%. All right, let's take a 5-minute break just to give way for the Zuhur prayers, and we'll just come back after 5 minutes. Okay. All right. Okay, let's continue. So now that we are clear what we're trying to achieve, we already defined what particular trading style we're going to use. We already set our targets. We have already a money management plan that we have set here, and now it's just up to us to be disciplined enough to find the right setups and also to stick to our targets as well. Okay, so as I said, my teacher, hang on. Okay, my teacher, Fardanan, he told me that technique is just 10%, and most of it should be 90% of your trade is based on your own discipline. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the analysis part. So before you do the analysis, you have to make sure that you check you identify any possible market opportunity out there, because there's a lot of pairs. So there's a lot of opportunities out there. It's just up for you to be able to analyze them and set yourself up for the entry. Okay. So when we do this, we need to make sure that we do an analysis, and then after the analysis, then you should be able to set your setup when you are going to entry. And after your entry, then you should be able to make sure that you do maintenance of that entry. You need to make sure that you always reassess your situation during that process. Okay. So planning wise, we're already done. Now we'll go for the multi-time frame analysis. Okay. So first things first, when you do an analysis, that you should be able to start. You should be doing that from the start of the month, because obviously that entails you the big picture of what's happening in this particular pair. Okay, so let's just say that usually what I do is let me just get another. Okay, so what I do usually for a pair is I usually look for the monthly time frame. Okay, so at this particular monthly time frame, that we are on a particular sell setup. Okay, and as you can see, that is on a downtrend. Let me just, okay, so it's roughly on a downtrend. We don't have to take too much of that. Okay. All right. So the market is roughly constricting to a much more smaller space, like a triangle over here. So we know that there should be a bigger movement in the near future. Okay. So although that we're looking at a monthly, we do need to narrow down our options. So usually I combine support and resistance to help my entries for BBMA. So okay, so if I'm going to do support and resistance, what I usually look for is support somewhere on the left, because you know that things will happen again in the future. Okay, so here's a support over here. All right, and I'm just gonna set its zone for selling zone. Okay, let me just color this red. Okay, so over here I know that this is a support area and this is my selling zone. Okay, and also over here I also have another giveaway over here, which is another support zone. That's possible selling area, and also the zone is still within the mark zone earlier on. So as you can see over here, this support area has now become this resistance area has now become support over here. And once we do have a breakout over here, then now this support is become resistance in the future. So unless the market breaks this zone, then the market's going to go up. However, if it rejects this zone, then the market's going to go down. Okay, so that's the support resistance in that sense. Okay. All right. So now we do need to narrow down our options. So we know that monthly is looking for a selling setup over here. Then let's go to the weekly. So let me just hide those things. Okay. All right. So let me just. I think we need to open up because the. All right. So let's just make it much more simpler. Let's go to monthly again. Let's find out that zone area. So this is the support, and this is another support over here. So let's just mark these zones. Okay, and this is the selling zone. So as long as this selling zone is not broken yet by any monthly candle, then it should be still on sell. However, if there's a breakout, then it's going to be on a buying mode. Okay, so let me just so I only want to see this on the monthly time frame. Okay, so we know that monthly is going for sell and it's at the support zone where it's now becoming a resistance. Now we move on to weekly. What do we see in weekly is extreme D. Okay, so however, okay, so over here, this is a giveaway of what's happening right now. Okay, first of all, when you do multi-time frame analysis, I usually always look at MA50 and where it's positioned in relative to the candlesticks. So over here, we know that this is an uptrend because MA50 is below mid BB, and as you can see, this candle over here is the giveaway. Okay, so that is a re-entry candle at middle BB. Okay, if you look at Omar Ali's notes, he says that in these notes that a re-entry at mid BB is there's a minimum of 3 candles going for the re-entry. So if this is a re-entry buy, then the minimum movement upwards should be 3 candles. So this is what's happening here. So in the old BBMA, this is extreme CB. Okay, so let me just mark this. So it's a rejection of MA50 at mid BB. All right, so that's that's extreme B. So that's an equivalent to re-entry buy. Okay, at middle BB. So although monthly states that it's already at the sell zone, however, we do have candlestick Arakuko buy over here, and this is the re-entry zone for the monthly. So what we need to do here is mark this. Okay, so we have extreme buy over here. We have MHB. In Malay, it's market ilang volume, and in English, it's market as losses volume. So the most important thing is we do need to make sure that we mark this MHB. So to be able to identify MHB, you have to make sure you know what are the characteristics of MHB. So obviously, the first characteristics is that you have an extreme A. So an extreme A in this sense is the MA is outside of the Blinker band. Okay, as soon as the MA is outside the Blinker band, then you will have a TP Wajib over here. So after TP Wajib, you have, in English, it's mandatory take profit, because if you're on a buy entry over here and you don't TP over here, the market is going to go down on you again, because this, in a sense, is re-entry sell. because you have CSM and you have re-entry sell. As soon as the market goes down, then it doesn't break through low BB, then this candle here is the second characteristics of MHB. Okay, so let me just write this down. MHB. Okay, so the first one is extreme A. Okay, and then the second one you have you have a candle that couldn't break BB, so that's this number 2 over here. And then you have reverse CS. Okay, so when you have a reverse CS, which is this one, because this one goes down, it couldn't break low BB. This is second characteristics of MHB. And then you have a reverse candle that goes up. So this is now the reverse candle. So the reason why we have to mark the lowest body is to make sure that when there's a retest, we are able to entry buy. Okay, so obviously this part over here is the last characteristics of MHB, which is the retest CS. Okay, so during this retest, we entry buy. If the candle that goes to mid BB does not break mid BB, then we should take our profit because that's a re-entry sell at mid BB. However, here it breaks through mid BB and become candlestick Arakuko. Okay, so candlesticks Arakuko, in a nutshell, is a confirmation of where the market is heading. Okay, so in order for you to be able to know that this candlestick Arakuko is valid or not, the first thing that you should be looking at is, okay, let me just, okay, let me just write it down for you. So when you have a CS Arakuko, what you need to do is, obviously, first you check, okay, you check lower time frame for CSM, and then the second thing, you must make sure that higher time frame. Okay, okay, so you have to make sure that the higher time frame from this time frame does not have an opposite re-entry. So how do we do that? Okay, so we're doing CSAK validation now. So we mark CS Arakuko and we go to, sorry, we're at monthly right now. We go to weekly, and at the weekly we do have we do have CSM over here. Okay, over at weekly. However, sorry, we don't have any CSM at weekly at the moment. So that's an indication that the CS Arakuko at monthly might not be very valid CS Arakuko. However, at weekly you do have CS Arakuko and you do have a re-entry over here. However, it's very impossible for you to validate CS Arakuko at monthly because you can't go to the right to look at a much more higher time frame than monthly, because this is the biggest time frame that you have. Okay, so at the moment, that's the best that we can do for the CS Arakuko at monthly. However, over here at weekly, we do have CS Arakuko buy, so we can just do this validation instead. Okay, so let's look at D1. So over at D1, we do have CSM momentum buy at D1. Okay, and at monthly, what we have over here, because this is the monthly time frame that weekly that the weekly time frame was doing. So over here you don't have a re-entry sell, even though this candle over here managed to reject the MA5 and MA10 high. However, in a sense that these two candles over here tells you where the market is going, because this is now bullish engulfing. So if you have a month of candle formation that tells you that this is a bullish engulfing, then you should be looking for buy setups for the next month or so. So okay, so that was the giveaway over there. Okay. Okay. So that's how you validate CSR Kuku. However, later on when we move on to the lower time frame, then if we can find more CSR Kuku, then we'll validate that for you. So okay, so weekly, sorry, we already done monthly. Let me just fix this so it's much more. So we have CSR Kuku here, and we have extreme air buy, then we have MHP. Okay, so this is the monthly time frame for GA. Then we move on to its weekly. So at the weekly, we need to see what's happening over here. Okay, so over here it's really clear that there's no momentum at all at low BB over here, even though there's the market's going sideways. So when you see this weekly time frame going sideways, then we know that this is creating re-entry on a much more higher time frame. Okay, so we just need to narrow down our options over here. So we do have CS Arakuko over here, so that we already have validated. So this is a valid CS Arakuko. And then we have a re-entry buy over here, a candle that rejects MA5. Okay. So a re-entry over here, and then we have the market going up, and finally there's an extreme over here, extreme D, because the candles couldn't break top BB, and it goes down on a retracement to middle BB. So at middle BB you have extreme CB, which is also a re-entry buy. So according to Omar Ali's notes, that rejection at mid BB, a re-entry at mid BB, is there's a movement of minimum of 3 candles up. So right now we already have, as we can see, that within the next 3 weeks after this extreme re-entry at mid BB, there's a movement of 3 candles up. Okay, so over here, that's where the market stopped on the last week. Okay, so let's look at, sorry, hang on, let's go back. Let me just open another slide so it's much more easier for you guys. So what do we have at the monthly time frame? So at the monthly time frame, we do have a setups happening here. So we have extreme A sell, and then the price went down. However, as soon as it rejects middle BB, that's when we should take our profit, because extremes STP wajib can be at MA5 and 10, and also middle BB. So if a candle rejects middle BB, you should take the option of taking profit on this particular trades. Okay, so this is a daily time frame. So that the last daily time frame created CSM. So this is a so what does CSM tells us? Okay, what is a buy CSM tells us? So obviously we have to make sure we know what are the characteristics of CSM. So CSM is CS, the hang on, let me just okay, so that's the first definition. So it's a CS that close outside the BB. Okay, so what do we mean by close outside the Bollinger Band? The definition of the formation of a candle is that if you have a buy candle, it opens at the bottom and closes at the top. So obviously, if you can see over here, this candle opens here inside the Bollinger Band and closes at the end of the day, last Friday, outside of the Bollinger Band. So now these two candles over here are considered as CSM. Okay, so next one is obviously CSM. Okay, so CSM also signifies the strength of a market. So we know if there's CSM buy, we know the market is going up. There's a strength of market going there. So what is it for us? Okay, so what does it mean for us? Okay, so what you need to remember is that every first candlestick momentum will create a re-entry. Okay, so over here, this is the first candlestick momentum at this particular point. After CS Arakuko, you have re-entry buy and you have CSM. This CSM, it goes for another 3 or 4 candles up and then it goes back down. So the re-entry for this CSM is actually at middle BB. Okay, so re-entries can happen at MA5, MA5 or 10, or middle BB. Okay, there's three different re-entry points that we can access. Okay, so that's a very important thing that we should be able to understand. So on a higher time frame, we can conclude that first, monthly states that it is on a buy setup. We have extreme A, MHB, we have candlestick Arakuko. There's a possible re-entry at some point over here. However, there's also this also here indicates that there's a zone for selling zone for SNR. Okay, so we know that there's a possible resistance somewhere at this zone. Okay, but we can't sell yet until there's a confirmation at daily. So if daily does not give me any confirmation of a sell setup, then what we should do right now is focus on buy, because right now we have also a buy setup at weekly, CS Arakuko, re-entry buy, and you have another re-entry over here. And at daily, you also have CS Arakuko, and there's a confirmation of MA50 going below the middle BB, and you have a re-entry at maybe mid BB and CSM. Okay, so we know the higher time frame is going up. Okay, so the next step is, because our plan here is for us to do scalping, so we know the bigger time frame is going up. So obviously we have to make sure that when we do entry for any scalping, that we should follow the higher time frame, so we can get much more or much safer entry when it comes to margins. Okay, let's just say, for example, that for some reason we entry buy at this particular point. Okay, so let's just say we entry buy over here, and if you have a margin of, let's just say that this over here, the market went down. You have a 1 cent entry over here. Market went up, and you didn't take your profit, and it went down to about 130 pips. If you have $100, that 1 cent would still be able to sustain the floating margins during that. So if you have the discipline to wait out the market going up, then you should be able to reap the rewards after that. So this is what we call the zero loss entry when it comes to the second BBMA notes. That I will cover maybe in the future when I already converted the notes to English. However, it is very important for you to make sure that you have a very, very healthy margin, because you know you can sustain the retracement downwards even up to 120 pips. You won't be able to blow that $100 accounts. Okay? So even if you have floated for about 2-3 days, you know after that, after a few days, after a week, you are able to reap those awards. Because let's say you enter here and you end up over here, you have about 340 pips. Okay, that's about $3.40 on a $1 on a 1 cent entry. Okay, however, you won't be able to manage your daily targets. Okay. Okay, is there any questions so far from the higher time frame analysis? So we have concluded that this market is going up. So now we do need to make sure that we know when we are scalping, we're aiming for H1. Okay. However, we still need to do analysis on H4. Okay. So at H4, there's a signal that indicates the market going sideways over here. We have CSM, we have re-entry, and the candle over here does not break top BB, and the next few candles at H4 does not break moving average high 5 and 10. So this is a different sort of MHB. So if we know that the market is going sideways, it's trying to create a re-entry on a much higher time frame. Okay, so let's just mark over here. This is the highest candle body, and then you have a reverse, and now you have 3 retests that couldn't even break MA5 and 10. Okay, so we know the market is going down over here. Okay, let me just okay. So next one we'll go to H1. So we know in H4 we have we know at H4 we have an MHB, and also here at H1 it has a much more better setup. Okay, we have extreme A, we have TP Wajib, the candle goes up, and over here it created a new higher body. So this now has a new higher body, and you have retests over here. So he has a series of retests, and we still need a confirmation for CS Arakuko sell. Okay. All right. So usually, what I use for analysis over here on a much more lower time frame is I identify If the MA50 is outside of the blinker band, it tells you that there's a potential setup creating the candles are going sideways to create a potential setup on a much more high time frame. Okay, so over here we know that H1 and H4 are doing MHB. Okay, so at M15 there's also potential setups. So we have extreme A. So we have extreme A sell over here. We have CSR Kuko, the candle goes up, and there's MHB over here. So the candle couldn't break the highest body over here. There's a series of pretests, and here we have another. Here we have another sell signal over here. So if we are scalping on this particular pair, then we should be looking at an MHB entry over here. So we'll be entering an MHB sell over here, and obviously we're aiming to target for about 10 to 20 pips. So how do we narrow down our targets? Okay, so obviously we know that the market is going down, but where is it going? So obviously if H4 is going sideways, then we do need to have a little bit of imagination over here. Okay, so for D1 to continue its way up, it has to have a setup at H4. So at H4 it requires a re-entry buy. Okay, so if H1 is going down, then it's probably creating a re-entry buy at H4. However, if it's creating a re-entry buy at H4, then the most possible area that it's going to is obviously at Malo 5 and 10 or middle BB. Because later on when the markets reopen, okay, when the market reopen, then obviously this middle BB should be moving towards here. So I will be looking at a re-entry somewhere over here at middle BB. Okay, so what I usually do if I want to narrow down where the market is heading is I usually pull Fibonacci just to identify where the market is heading. Okay, so later on when the website is already after the website is launched, all of this information will be available to everyone, including how you pull basic Fibonacci, how you do SNR, and obviously an advanced setups for BBMA will be available. So that will be under Elite 51. Okay, so over here I have a rough idea where I can just narrow down the market where it's heading. Okay, so let me just pull this here. Alright, so I have two zones that I could just identify and see where it's heading at H4. So obviously, as I said before, if it goes to TP1, then it should probably around middle BB of H4, and also D1 should be around that spot. Okay, so I know for a fact that the market is going down for a retracement to create a re-entry buy at H4 in order for the higher time frame to continue its movement upwards. Okay, so if you're a patient person, then you should just wait for the re-entry buy at this zone. However, if you're scalping, then from this entry point over here to TP1, that's about 80 pips in total. So if you're just targeting 10 to 20 pips, then you can actually target from H1 from MA5 high to MA5 low, because that is just about 30 pips. Okay, so if you're a scalper, then that should be done. If you know the market's going downwards still, then when you achieve 20 pips, you lock those 20 pips, and if the market goes down, then that's the bonus for you. So you continually, gradually moving your SL plus to a much more higher profit margins. Okay, so I hope that I explained um, a few things over here, which is obviously the planning. I did manage to explain multi-time frame analysis and fake CSA, and also how to narrow down your entries and managing your margin. So far during the webinar, can you is there any questions so far? Okay, there's a few questions over here. Okay, just waiting for them to ask. Okay, we have a question here. So, does CSAK need to break middle BB only? What happens if it passes MALO as well, and what does that mean? Or passes MA? Okay, so in definition, CS Arakuko, or in English CSD, candlestick direction, the definition for that is a candlestick that breaks through mid BB, MA5 or MA10. Okay, so what I can do is I can just open hang on, open a chart here. Let's just say okay, NU. So let's just find some CS Arakuko. Okay, so over here we have candlestick direction. So this candle managed to break through middle BB, MA50, MA5, and MA10. Unfortunately, MA10 is not really visual here, but you know that MA5 has the candle has broke through MA5 already over here. So this is categorized as CS Arakuko sell. Okay, and another one over here. Let me just find CS Arakuko buy. Okay, so this one is CS Arakuko buy because it breaks through middle BB. Let me find that again. Over here, it breaks through middle BB. You have MA5 high, MA10 high, and even MA50. So this is an early signal that tells you that there's a change in trend over here. So you have candlestick Arakuko that breaks through MA50. Okay, even this candle over here is considered as CS Arakuko buy because it breaks through middle BB and MA5 and MA10. And as you were asking earlier on, you have a CS Arakuko over here, breaks to MA5, MA10, mid BB, MA50, and even becomes a CSM. Okay. So if you have a candle like this, then this is what we call a dominant candle. This is the biggest candle among the crowd. So as long as this candle, there's no buy candle that breaks through this candle body, okay, then you can still focus sell on this particular market. Okay, so there's no candle yet that's able to break through above this area of this dominant candle. Okay, and just let me show that again. So that's your dominant candle, and even the market has gone down and gone up again, the market couldn't able to break through this dominant candle. So there's another breakout again over here telling you that the market's going down. So it's very important. As I went to KL earlier on, I met with a dear friend, Radin. He has his own channel, Radin FX, and he emphasizes on um, dominant candles as well, and engulfing candles. So I highly suggest that you should learn more on candlestick formation. So in my channel, there's definitions of those candles. There's examples of candlestick formation that you might be able to help you to define. Although you're using BBMA, but knowledge of other techniques will be able to narrow down the options for you and give you a much more better decision making process. Okay, so all right, so let me just answer another question here. So Falik was asking if I could elaborate more on how the zone is formed. Okay, so I think you're mentioning about SNR. So maybe I can talk about that in the next one. But also the zone marking, SNR marking will be available at the website as well. Okay, there's another question here. If we get better, how to scale up trades 20 pips based on a larger lot, basically how to progress incrementally in compounding. Okay, this is a very good question over here. So what you can do with this is, obviously you start with small numbers with 1 cent lot. However, if you gain consistency in achieving 10 to 20 pips on a daily basis, then obviously you can be able to do that. Later on, I also have another spreadsheet that calculates that for you. So you have a certain lot size that you can utilize for you to grow your account on a compounding way. So maybe in the next webinar I'll be able to share that. Okay, so is there any more questions for today before we end the webinar? Okay, so I think that's it for today. So if there's any question, you guys can private message and send me your questions. I'll try to answer them if I have time later on. But hopefully our short session today is able to help you guys. So I hope to see you again soon. Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.